next, we are going to Love and Legacy, a candid discussion on planning for the end of life, sponsored by Live On NY. Welcome, welcome, ladies. Good to see you. Welcome back. I'm going to pass off the stage because I know that you guys have this. One of my favorite presenters, and I'm looking forward to what you're sharing with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here with you. We don't have a lot of time and we've got some really great information, so I want to jump right in. I'm Shani Aldain. I'll be moderating the discussion today between myself and Lilian. We did have another guest that was supposed to join us, but unfortunately, at the last minute, she got called away to court. But Lillian and I are going to soldier on there. We still have a lot of vital information to share with you. So, as I mentioned, I'm from Live On New York. Live On New York is a nonprofit organization. We're an organ procurement organization, and we facilitate organ, eye, and tissue donation for the New York metro area. We provide support and services for the families of those who donate and receive organs, and we advocate for this life saving cause. Today, we're going to be exploring the vital need for end of life planning in communities of color. We're going to address common barriers that exist and how it can be used to protect your family, your resources, and potentially save lives. We also want to become more comfortable with speaking specifically about death. A lot of us don't like to talk about death, but it's coming, it's going to happen, and we need to be prepared for it. So you'll hear us use terms like advanced care or end of life planning. We want to get comfortable with talking about death. Advanced care planning, just to give you a little background, is a planning, it's a process where you make plans for your future just in case you become incapacitated at some point, you become very ill and you cannot communicate your wishes on your own. So you put a plan in place that will communicate those wishes to your loved ones so they know exactly what it is that you're going to need. And unfortunately, like I said, we're going to be talking primarily to communities of color because Black Americans are 75% less, and Hispanic Americans are 70% less likely non than white Americans to have completed this sort of planning. And this planning is so vital. Excuse me. And why that's important to Live On New York is in New York City, in the New York City area, there are roughly 8,000 people who are on the transplant waiting list. So you can probably imagine, given the statistics that I just shared, they're probably very similar for communities of color, especially Black people. So that's why we're here today to really talk about that and start fleshing that out. I want to introduce my co-panelist, Lillian. Lillian is the Director of Outreach and Education for End of Life Choices New York. Lillian, I want to just give you a quick second to say hi and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Shani. Yes, I'm Lilian Mehran. I'm the Director of Outreach and Education for End of Life Choices New York. A little bit about my organization: it's a nonprofit. We serve statewide, and our mission is to improve end of life care, expand end of life options, and promote healthcare equity at the end of life. And a big piece of what we do is outreach and education, which is why I'm here. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank and Live On New York. We are very proud of the work that we are doing with you and work that we'll do with you in the future. So we appreciate you being here with us today. So I want to jump into these questions. Um, and what we can, maybe start with is what are some of the common barriers and misconceptions about end of life? And really quickly, before you answer, I do want to just tackle, on our end at Live On New York. And I started to kind of go into it, and I think I just got off track, but why it is so important, and some of the common barriers to donation is that people believe that they're not going to be saved. That if they become a formal registered organ donor, that when the doctor finds out, they're not going to do everything to save their lives. And that is so very untrue. The doctors, the hospitals benefit in no way by not doing everything possible within their power to save your life. There are religious reasons also why people do not want to become organ donors, but we are finding now that a lot of religious groups are beginning to see organ donation as, because it is a way to save life. So they're looking at it more as a good thing. Um, so we're, just starting to find that people are becoming a little more comfortable to it, but that is um, a common barrier that we find when we're in the community. Lillian, what have you come in contact with?
Yeah. So, a similar experience we've had to what you're describing. A big misconception about advanced care planning is that it's giving up control, that you are losing control over what happens to you. And I understand why that fear exists. But to your point, really, advanced care planning is about deciding what will happen to you if and when you lose the ability to make those decisions and voice those decisions for yourself. So let me unpack that a little bit. So if we talk about it in terms of end of life, but really it may come up if, let's say, you're in an accident and you end up in the hospital, you're knocked out, and somebody needs to make decisions for you, and maybe after a day or so, or hopefully less, you're better, then you can continue to make decisions for yourself. So sometimes there are points, for instance, I've had this when I've undergone surgery, where someone else had to make decisions for me temporarily. And then once I'm able to make decisions for myself, I can. But at the end of life, this is especially critical because this is part of your legacy. This is in part the final chapter. Sometimes it's framed as your legacy. And so, how do you want that to be written? And it's really about making sure that it's based on your own wishes and values. And so, what that means is it's a process of reflecting on what your values and wishes are, having conversations with those you love and those who love you about what this means, writing them down, and we can talk more about that in a bit. And then over time, reflecting and revising as needed. It should be planning about what you would want if something happens tomorrow. If tomorrow comes, this doesn't need to be utilized. Wonderful. We always hope it would never need to be utilized. We always say it's always too early until it's too late, but that it's there to protect you. And it's there as a record and as a legacy of conversations to make sure that those who will need to make decisions for you know what your wishes are. And that's really a gift to them. A
Right.
big barrier that we see here is folks, this is a lot of folks don't feel comfortable thinking about this stuff. I mean, I know for me, before I was working in the field, sometimes I thought, oh, I don't, I'm healthy right now. I don't want to think about it. But I think certainly COVID has made everybody more aware that
Yeah.
tomorrow is never a certainty. Life can be unpredictable. And so, it's important to have these conversations, but then, okay, maybe you're open to it, but then how do you do it? So that's a big barrier, just knowing what the next steps are, what this means. And unfortunately, this often doesn't get brought up when someone goes to see their doctor in other settings. So we're working on that. But really, I think, now with what we've been experiencing the last few years and even going further back, it's a really good time to be having these conversations with your loved ones if you haven't already. And we're working to try to remove some of those barriers. But unfortunately, we're all in a position where we kind of need to be our own advocates and advocates for those
Right.
people still.
So, Lillian, it sounds like this is something that everybody should be doing.
Yes.
Not young. You don't have to be super old. You don't have to be sick. Sounds
Right.
like something everyone should be doing.
Exactly.
So, if we're talking about everybody should be doing it, what are the next steps? If someone wants to move forward, what are the resources that are available? What do they need to plan on? What do they consider when they put a plan like this together?
Yeah, so there are a few things to think about. The biggest one is deciding who will be your advocate and your voice, essentially, if someone ever needs to step in and communicate and make decisions for you. And so that can be a partner, it can be an adult child, it could be a friend, it could be a minister. It's really up to you to decide who you trust. and have conversations with that person so that they know what matters to you, so that they're not going into the situation, if God forbid it ever happens, having to guess. They'll know that they're really honoring you. And so have those conversations, think about who that person is. That's number one. Once you've done that, complete what's called a healthcare proxy form. In New York, that's what it's called, a healthcare proxy form. It's online, it's publicly available. You can find it on our website at endoflifechoicesny.org. Again, endoflifechoicesny.org. Fill that out. That's the number one thing to do. Going from there, then think about what are some things that maybe you would really want to be focused on, like please do everything you can to keep me alive. Or, here are some things that I would feel comfortable with, but maybe I wouldn't want a feeding tube. Think about these things. And also, this is where organ donation comes in. Think about, if that time comes where a decision like that will need to be made, is this something that I would like that decision maker to say, yes, please give, Lilian's organs, if she's eligible to do that, to anyone to potentially save them. Exactly. So there are a lot of different pieces there, but this is also where organizations connect. Organ donation can be a conversation.
And if I can interject really quickly, that is actually a message that we're really trying to get out to the, to the community members is, if you're not comfortable with becoming a registered organ donor, have these conversations with your loved ones, those that will be making those decisions for you. Let them know what your wishes are, that you want to donate your organs to whom, let them know. So even if you don't want to be formally registered, when that time comes, someone can speak on your behalf.
Yep. Yes, and that the person that you list on that healthcare proxy form has the authority to make that call for you. So make sure that you talk about that with them.
Right. Okay. So, what are some of the common mistakes, Lilian?
The biggest mistake that we see is that folks imagine themselves at a different time in a different way than they are right now. We should be making these plans again in case something happens tomorrow. So think about our present tense body and mind. So often I hear from folks who are doing this saying, well, I'm imagining myself really in an advanced age, maybe with a serious life-limiting illness, but that's not their reality right now. And these are not meant to be permanent things. These are meant to document where you're at today. And you can always go back in and revise them, have additional conversations. Really, this is not just a one and done thing. And so that is the biggest mistake. And then it becomes a real challenge because let's say I imagine myself being at a different point. Something happens to me tomorrow, and the only references and the only conversations that my decision maker have had are based on those things. They're not really going to know if they're honoring me. And so it's important to focus on that. That's the biggest mistake. And the other big mistake is once you've completed these forms, in particular the healthcare proxy form, to taking it, putting it into a lockbox. Make sure you share it because your decision maker is going to need proof that that's who they are. Your doctors would like to have this information too. So share copies with the decision maker, your doctors, other loved ones, so everyone is on the same page. Because when the time comes, they may not have a key to that lockbox or know that's where it is. So those are the two big mistakes that we see.
Awesome. Just as we're moving forward, how can end of life planning save lives?
Yeah.
Because, we talked about how our organizations intersect. Can you speak to, to that? I have my 2 cents, but can you speak to it on your end to how it can save lives?
Sure. So, sometimes it can seem like we're talking in contradictions when we're talking about end of life and saving life. Exactly. But really, in having these conversations about your wishes, again, in particular, we want to highlight organ donation here. If you've reached the end of your life, however that journey may have been, that person that has to make decisions for you at that point can say, okay, well, this is an opportunity where, I recognize that Lilian has reached the end of her life, but for her legacy to live on and for her as a gift to live on, maybe she wants to be an organ donor. And if I've already registered, then that information is there. Again, if I'm not comfortable registering, we could have had these conversations, but this is a way to really live on in terms of your legacy as a giver and as a real lifesaver in terms of the gifts that
I
you
see
can.
what you're doing there, Lilian. I like it.
Shani, what are your thoughts about that?
No, and definitely, that is a way to save lives. We oftentimes think about, like you were saying, end of life. There is tragedy there. No one wants to pass away. We just got through in April with our Donate Life Month, where we really honored our donor families and we honored our recipients. And some of those stories, you get used to hearing them a lot, and you're thinking, oh, we're saving lives, but there is tragedy. On the other side of that, there is death, and that is not something that a lot of us are ready or willing to face and talk about. But having this plan in place will give you the opportunity to save someone's life. You can save a baby's life. No one is too young, no one is too old, very few people are too sick to give, donate life so someone else can live on. One of our volunteers at Live On New York lost her son at 5 weeks old to SIDS. That little baby saved two other babies. So giving the gift of life is such an amazing thing. And like I said, a lot of people are not comfortable with, because they have an innate and sometimes distrust for the medical field, government, all of that. And we get it. But there are a lot of people that are not opposed to it. Although they have this distrust, they're not opposed to becoming organ donors. So the healthcare proxy, making these end of life choices, doing this planning will be able, to help you donate life to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, so, so vital and so very important. But a lot of people, and even us when we're in the field, are not necessarily sure how to broach these conversations with our loved ones, especially when you're talking, when you have religion, other stigmas, but a lot of us are dealing, have families that have diabetes. And that aside, we're all going to die one day. But how do you broach these conversations? What is, your suggestion to broach these conversations with our families, our loved ones, about our wishes? Because it can be a very uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
I am having trouble myself having the conversation with my parents. Every time I want to talk about it, we talk for a second and then it's, well, I don't know where to start. And I'm like, well, we have to start with the conversation. We have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest, Lilian?
Yeah. There's no one right way, but I will say that we often hear from folks who say, I was really nervous going into this. It was a battle to actually have the conversation. But once we did, it was a really beautiful thing. And I think really at its core, what you're talking about is what matters. The medical stuff, all these specific medical decisions, sure, if you have views on what that means for you, it's important to share that. But at the end of the day, the person who will be making decisions for you, your loved one that you've chosen, has to know you, has to know what do you value in life. When you make your own medical decisions right now, how do you make those decisions? What values do you base those decisions on? And so that they have that framework to work off of. And so there are many different ways to potentially bring it up. I have to say that COVID has been a good introduction for a lot of people to say, hey, mom, I know that things have been really challenging. If you've lost someone in your life, you can talk about honoring them. And in that conversation, say, I want to make sure that I honor you and your wishes. Can you tell me what matters to you? And there are guides available. The Conversation Project, so the Conversation Project has a guide that you can use specifically once you has some icebreaker options and also some questions. Or you can say, I've been thinking about the future and I want to make sure that I know what you would want because I don't want there to be any kind of uncertainty. Can you tell me that, would you want XYZ? Or what should I really be focusing on most if and when I have to make decisions for you? And I would say that, really, again, this is a big gift that you're giving someone. We have heard from so many families where there wasn't one person chosen, these conversations didn't happen. And at a time of immense emotion and grief, there's fighting within the family about what to do and if they did the right thing. And so that's something to be brought up here too, to say, I want to know what matters to you so I can honor you. And so we as a family can make sure that we're supporting you and supporting ourselves going forward.
Right, definitely. Um, that is so key. My grandmother, when she passed away, she had everything laid out. Her burial plot was paid for, it was chosen, everything, every T was crossed, every I was dotted. So it left my mother and her siblings, they grieve peacefully, without having to worry about doing all that other stuff. Um, so yes, it definitely is. It is so vital. And again, from the organ donation standpoint, um, being able to make sure that your wishes of donation are known formally is so key. It's so key and it is so vital. Um, and if there is anyone out there that would be interested in learning more about organ donation, you can check our website at liveon. It's liveonny.org, liveonnewyork.org. If you are interested in volunteering with us, please reach out to us. We need more volunteers. We need more ambassadors, to educate, people, to let them know that this is important. And again, not just the organ donation piece, but the planning for your end of life, because it's coming. Death is coming, in one fashion or another, and you just want to be ready. You want to protect your family. You want to protect your resources, and hopefully save someone's life. I don't know if there are any questions. I know we're coming to about the end of our time. Are there any questions in the chat anywhere? I think they're checking.
Yes. Oh, I think you muted.
Thank you for that, because I love, that's like part of my MO. Like this virtual world, I'm always talking on mute. I've got
Right.
like, okay, all right, no big deal. But so there were no comments or questions in the chat box, but Spirit did lead me to kind of just add a couple, like something to what you ladies are talking about, and just some gems that came up for me. And I know you mentioned the distrust, Shani,
Mhm.
and yeah, tons of distrust. But what else comes up for me in our community specifically is stories that are attached to religion, and
Mhm.
leaving here with all of my parts that I came with, and different caveats that all kind of go back to that.
Right.
But what I would offer, because I thought that it was dynamic that you shared that the loss, which my heart goes out to that mom and sending her lots of love and light, is that one baby lost was able to save two babies.
Mhm.
Offering that the person who may be challenged religiously to take that conversation to whoever their most high is, and
Yeah,
really
exactly.
really see what comes up for them with that. We can't tell anyone what to do, but I think that the God that I know that I serve, I think would understand if I sent my baby, maybe home with not everybody part, because I would be sending the spirit home, not the
Right.
physical body. And
Right. Right.
get that the physical body is not our actual soul and spirit.
Right.
And just really just wanting them, each individual, to sit with that. And because that's my outlook on it, is that if
Mhm.
I can save a life, save someone's eyesight, save someone's liver, kidney, with me going home to
Yeah.
my I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with
Right.
my parents or whoever's here left to put me to rest without those parts. I think I would be
And what we've seen, Jamie, is definitely some religions are beginning to embrace it as a good deed that you've done.
okay.
You know, it's the conversation is happening slowly, but it's definitely the conversation is spreading, and more, you know, groups with religious affiliations are beginning to embrace donations slowly, which is a win in every regard.
Part. And then you guys are doing your part with the breaking down the distrust and really kind of, because bad things happen, but bad things happen everywhere, anywhere, at any time. And like you said, what I do know is true is that we're born and we die. No matter how hurtful it is, no matter how hard it is to let go of our loved ones, it's inevitable. Unfortunately, we can't stay here forever.
Yeah.
And definitely at the same time.
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't want to end this for you. I want to pass it back to you and let you wrap up and let the folks know how to reach you if they have questions. And of course, they could leave comments here, and we would make sure that you guys get to those, as well as you'll be able to see the chats in the future and the recording in the future.
Okay.
Be able to address answers. But thank you.
Thank you. Lilian, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to close with.
Yeah, I just, thank you so much to both of you, and Shani, thank you for inviting me. And I just want to say that I recognize that we covered a lot, and that this is, a topic that sometimes you need to sit with and feel. And if I can answer any questions, I'm happy to support. If someone wants to access these forms, if they need a little more help or information, I'm here. Again, our website is endoflifechoicesny.org, and I can be reached at Lilian, Lillian. It's in my name here at eolcny.org, eolcny.org. And I welcome these conversations and questions.
And I can be reached at SAUDAIN at liveonnewyork.org. That's LIVEONNY.org. So Saudane at liveonnewyork.org. Thank you for having us and letting us celebrate Juneteenth. Talk about life. Thank you so much for having us again.
Thank you for returning, and I hope to see you ladies again next year, as well as our lunch and learns. I'll be in contact with you.
Definitely. We're very much looking forward to that.
Super, and great to see you, Lilian. And ladies, have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. Thank you. Bye.